but
the morning.
it's a bit cold.
So we're on the latte.
It's early.
It is early doors,
I haven't even got a latte.
If you look closely, you might be able to see. We've installed new heating in the bar, haven't we? And it's kind of feel like we're getting like a suntan. I'm going to fit in properly
just
now.
to my shoulders.
Yeah, everything else.
Waist down and frozen. Yeah. So, but
it's great to be here.
It is.
And we're here for a special extra recording, aren't we?
We are, yeah.
And so we've got the fantastic Carl Beech coming to join us.
I've been excited about this one.
Really excited. We're getting him on straight away. But
we will, yeah.
Carl is a fantastic guy. He's a real visionary.
He's a pioneer.
He is a pioneer.
He's been pioneering and stuff for years.
Yeah, he is.
You know what I mean? So it's great to have him on, particularly to do with men.
Definitely.
So that's
definitely. So let's welcome him on straight away. Carl, great to have you here, mate. Thanks for coming to join us.
Mate.
Hi, boys. Good to be with you.
How you doing? How are things today?
I'm doing good. Welcome to the Bonsai Palace.
Yeah. Love it.
Loving the bonsai behind you.
I've got a few more down the other end, but yeah.
Are you in your garden, mate? Where are you?
Yeah, I've got like a little house out here in Staveley in Derbyshire. So I needed a man cave. So
Nice.
I'm not like you, Alan, where you've like made this amazing thing over many years. I've got one that was put up in a day.
Yours is probably warm, though, Carl.
Yeah.
You've probably yours
mate.
is insulated
Yeah,
and everything.
beautiful.
Probably, not like this. This has been made out of scrap wood and pallets. So,
mate,
it's not the best.
This is amazing.
Yeah,
it's like a tropical haven.
Wow,
beautiful.
It does. It looks fantastic.
It does. Yeah.
And Carl, you have your finger in many pies, doing loads of great stuff, and it was just this conversation could and probably will go anywhere. But I thought we'd start straight away with your involvement in something called CVM, Christian Vision for Men, which you've been part of for many years. You're the president of now, which I love the title, by the way.
Presidente.
El Presidente is what I'm more comfortable with.
Yeah, I would be.
We can go with that.
I would be.
Yeah,
El Presidente.
And I noticed I was looking on the bio this morning, and it said Christian Vision for Men, introducing men to Jesus and the church to men.
Wow,
which I really liked, because
do
you know what I found? And we have loads of fellas in from Finnegan in Finnegan's tonight who aren't in church or who are not sure or just they're just hanging out in the bar for the night, and we spend the night in the evenings talking about all sorts, banter, faith, having a chat. But what I found is it's easier to introduce men to Jesus than it is to introduce men to the church, in the sense that, that feels like the harder part of the equation sometimes.
Getting them to church, like whatever that looks like. It is. Yeah, it defo is. Talk a little bit about CVM and maybe speak a little bit about that for us, Carl.
Yeah, so it's I think it's 31 years old now.
Wow.
And it basically came about because a bunch of blokes realised that there were less men in church than women. I think at the time it was set up, the ratio was around 70-30 women to men.
Yeah.
And the conclusion was at the time, I don't think Jesus loves women more than men. So it's something gone wrong here in the way we're communicating.
I was in a meeting once, Carl, and some fella got up to give some sort of prophetic word, and he was trying to do the kind of inclusive sort of thing, and he got up and he went, "Just want to say, Jesus loved the ladies." I had to get up and speak after him. I was just like, I don't know what to say.
I hear all kinds of amazing lines, like being in a church once and the worship leader standing up and saying, "Jesus wants to romance you this morning." I'm like, I don't know. But I get introduced as, this is Carl Beech. He has a huge passion for men.
Yeah.
And that's
Sorry, I
often
I
a bit
interrupted
awkward.
Yeah.
So it was an evangelistic movement, and 31, 32 years on, there's hundreds of men's groups all spread around the country, and we sort of educate church leaders and church leadership teams how to integrate men in the church, how to win men to Jesus, introduce them to the faith, and how to get them on the front foot of discipleship and all that kind of stuff. But out and out evangelists, really telling men about Jesus, because we think only Jesus can change your life and your destiny and give your life to the full. So but the working class men in particular are missing. They don't want to go. Men don't like sitting in rows listening to one expert project content at them, do they?
No.
We have to work at all that stuff.
And we found, people, would be way more comfortable watching this and having a little think about it or chatting to in the pub, innit? If we're down the pub and you think, I think this, my mate, I'd really struggle to to introduce him to the church. But I mean, and we work hard locally, don't we, to make church as friendly a place for a fella to come in and approachable. But we just those conversations you can have with your mates in the pub, which I
go to the pub I basically lost touch with all my mates years ago from school and all that, and who I hung around with when I became a Christian, which is weird, isn't it? Because I ended up in Christian circles doing all the time the churchy stuff. And then I had no mates. I suddenly realised I've got no mates unless they're in church. And no... So after going to one of their funerals that died, well, I actually ended up in the wrong funeral because they gave me the wrong time. And I sat through this funeral of someone I didn't know. And then got the wake and most of them are gone because it was... honestly.
What a day.
But they said... someone said to me, they come in on a Monday night. So since then, and it must be 5 or 6 years easy, since then, I go a lot of Mondays to that. Well, it's a different pub now because that one's shut, but just to see these 5 fellas, you know what I mean? And we just sit there, we have a chat, we talk about life, the wife, you know, Netflix, footy, just stuff. It's not, you know, but
then occasionally...
we talk faith.
Yeah.
We definitely talk faith. I mean, the amount of times that they get me one-on-one instead of like in the crowd, they give me stick, you know what I mean? I'm always getting jokes about faith and all that type of stuff. But a one-on-one stuff, they'll all talk to me and open up about
it's
stuff.
amazing, Alan. It's amazing what men will talk about when they're on their own with a few other blokes. And it's not what people think. It's not all just the football and the Formula One. They do talk about life and the universe and everything. They do, because blokes are searching, and it's a caricature to say that they don't, but they moderate their behaviour in the wrong environment.
Yeah,
you know, and so we need to create the right spaces. I'm a big advocate for a lean-in post or bar in every single church building. The blokes like to lean on something and have a chat, don't they?
Yeah. Do you know what we've got?
Put a shelf up.
Do you know what we've got, mate? And we've got one of them here because as soon as Alan saw him, he was having them away. But we got donated some furniture for the church, and we've got these massive barrels with a piece of wood and a glass on top, and they're just perfect, aren't they?
Yeah, for leaning on.
The number of lads who come in and go, I've got to have one of those, and it's like, join the queue. Alan's already nicked one, but
there's only 2 left.
So one of those spaces which we have really benefited from ourselves, but also have brought lads along to, and again, lads who I would say I'd feel nervous if I brought them to church. Like, how would they find this? But they've thrived in the gathering, and we've seen people come to faith at the gathering, but we've also seen people who've not come to faith, but you can tell they've been drawn and they've seen something that they attracted.
Well, I'll tell you what normally happens, Carl. We bring someone who's new to the gathering. They come and they're all a bit suspicious.
Yeah.
That it's a bit difficult to get them in the meetings. They sit in the overflow tent, watch the screen, and you'd actually think they're hating every minute of this. Yeah. This has happened at least twice.
Yeah.
And then we sort of say we're going the next year, and they go, oh, yeah, I want to go to that. It's boss. And you're like, what happened there? Because everything about you while you were there, you hated every second of it. Yeah. You know what I mean? But then the next year, they're giving their lives to Jesus.
Wow.
That's what happens.
So the gathering
that's exactly what happens.
How would you describe? I know I've heard you describe it in all sorts of wonderful ways, Carl. But how would you describe the gathering, which is a summer gathering of lads, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like Top Gear meets Songs of Praise, is what I often say. So it basically came out of my head 12, 13 years ago. I was at a men's conference that I was running, and I was boring myself. I'm so bored of myself. I'm bored of my talks. I'm bored of my own event. We were actually on a ferry. We advertised it as a cruise from Liverpool to Dublin.
Okay.
But actually, we took over a ferry.
Wow.
And we had 300 blokes on there. It's a long story behind it. And we were almost going to go bankrupt because it all blew up spectacularly badly financially. But anyway, while we were on the ship, and at the time, you know, I know we might talk about my sober journey earlier, but at the time I was in my second Guinness. And someone said to me, I said, I'm bored of this. If we survive this, we've got to sack this off. And they said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, blow stuff up, rock bands, shoot people, you know, tell people about Jesus, eat bad food, have a riot, you know, fill a field with thousands of people. And they said, well, what do you need? And I said, well, I need a field. And I'll kid you not, there were multiple witnesses to this. This posh bloke came over. You know, I knew he was posh instantly because he had the posh look. He had wealth hair and wealth appearance, you know. and he was carrying a cardboard tube, and he said, "Are you Carl Beech?" Now, because I'm working class background, whenever someone super posh talks to me, I start mimicking them because I get all nervous. And I went, "Oh, yes, I am." And he said, "Can I show you what's in my tube?" And I went, "Yes."
Wow.
And he undid this tube, and he rolled out a map of polo fields. And he said, "I've just bought these polo fields."
Oh, God.
And I went,
Wow.
"Oh, marvelous." And he said, my son had a vision of thousands of men coming to Christ on these fields. Would you like to use them?
Wow.
Wow.
So I'm like, wow. So we set up the gathering, and I'd never run a festival before. So first year we had the world's grumpiest barman from Swindon. The tent wasn't big enough. We didn't have enough toilets. The toilets broke. The showers didn't work. But we told men about Jesus, and about 20 of them came to Christ. We had about 280, 300 there. And then over 10 years, it grew to just under a few thousand.
Yeah. Wow.
And then the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight started to sponsor us, and Formula One teams brought their cars along, and it got crazy. Last year we had an ABBA tribute band where we had 1,500 blokes singing "Gimme, Gimme, Gimme a Man After Midnight," jumping up and down. And then we tell them about Jesus on Saturday night, loads of storytelling, and I think we must have seen about 1,300 blokes give their lives to Jesus now.
Incredible.
And it's great. Yeah, amazing. It's one of the best things I've ever done.
It is a special place. And I mean, the first year, we've done it classic. First year we went, I think one of the guys in our group said, "I'll bring the tents and the cooker and all that." And so we arrived. He had 2 bags, and it was half of a
tent,
half of one tent and half of another tent.
Yeah.
And then what was it? And then he had
the cooker was broke.
The cooker was
we
broken.
Had no food.
And so
some fella turns up with a stick of broccoli. That's the stick of broccoli. That's all he brought.
Was that the year it was an absolute mud pit, or was that a different year? I remember one year.
Like that was another year.
I have no recollection of that year. That's a fable.
that
People
mud
tell me
pit
it's
year.
2016, but it didn't happen.
I give up my shoes.
My mate's awning.
I literally ditched my shoes in the end.
Yeah. Everyone thinks I'm in some posh tent. I slept in my mate's awning for the first 8 years. I got flooded out twice.
Yeah. Respect for that. Alan was just walking around site like a feral, like no shoes, just like a homeless man, just wandering around.
I love it.
He'd abandoned his shoes in some mud pit. But
I just threw them away.
Yeah.
It was pointless.
But we had Danny on, and you've met Danny, Carl, but we had Danny coming to Finnegan's one night, and he told the story of how, he come to faith and had this experience of God in the tent, stood at the back with a bottle of beer in his hand, and just suddenly he's like, his head's spinning.
And he ended up in the prayer tent.
Ended up in the prayer tent. And just seeing how God had moved.
I think my pinned tweet on Twitter is someone said, and I was standing at the back of the tent. I just preached. And so I walked past and I see the toilet. And someone went, "Hold me beer, I need to go to the front and give me life to Christ." And he passed his beer to the steward. He stood his beer. He went down the front, wept, gave his life to Jesus, came back and got his beer.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Brilliant,
yeah. I remember the year that, because Graham Kendrick does it, the worship stuff. And I remember the year that Shine, Jesus, Shine got a relaunch.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Because something broke, the words broke on the projector, and he couldn't do the song he wanted to do, and someone shouted, "Shine, Jesus, shine."
He shouted out, "Give the people what they want."
Yeah. And he started to play, and I tell you what, I don't get overly emotional with stuff and all that. That was a holy moment in that tent. That was a holy moment. That was one of them moments when you felt something special happening.
Yeah.
Because,
I agree.
People then started trying to sing "Shine, Jesus, Shine" after, and it was just not that good.
Trying to recreate
it. But in that moment, that was something. There was something happening there with the Spirit of God. I think it was special.
I think we need to bring a group of the lads from Finnegan's down to the gathering this summer.
That's what we'll do. We'll invite them.
What's the date, Carl, for the gathering this summer?
It's the 24th to 26th of June. But let me just double check that, because that could be spectacularly wrong. I'm not the dates guy.
No. Sounds like
I'm just a hired gun these days.
I think that would be spot on, wouldn't
almost, it? Yeah, 23rd to the 25th.
All right.
23rd.
Well, give us a shout if any of the Nuggets are watching. Let us know if you fancy coming down to the gathering.
It's a laugh. You can throw axes. It's boss.
Oh, brilliant.
You have a 500 sides game of footy. Zip wires.
Did you know I can get insurance for axe throwing, but not the football?
Really?
Well, let's be honest. Someone always breaks their leg. So, in fairness, there's more of a chance of a payout, isn't there, for the footy? So.
Yeah, we do give an annual injury award.
We do.
Nice.
But, yeah, one year we had a bloke entered the competition who cut his finger on a tin of hot dogs.
Yeah.
And then we had another guy who had a heart attack.
Yeah, and he didn't win.
The guy cut his finger won because the heart attack was a pre-existing condition.
Oh, wow. He's trying to cheat in there. No, not having that.
Yeah.
No, and you do this thing where you ban fruit as well.
Yeah.
Where did that come
and
from?
Expressive dancing.
Phew.
The fruit ban was a spontaneous joke 10 years ago
when
I started banning. So I get heckled by all the guys, and I banned fruit. And then it escalated over the years to a series of very complicated bylaws of what is permissible or not permissible. You know, whether it's fermented, whether it's been processed, how much additional sugar has been added. And then one year we actually had a fighter pilot who'd been on operations over Afghanistan. Wow. And he was a typhoon pilot, and he'd actually brought with him a ration pack of papaya fruit.
Wow.
So we hauled him up on the stage and we said, what should we do with him? And 1,500 blokes or 2,000 blokes shouted out, burn him.
I mean,
it's an interesting move to publicly shame the forces.
In some ways, Carl, that's quite funny what you say about the fruit thing. It started off as this thing and then it escalated and to all these bylaws and everything. Sometimes we do that with the Bible, don't we? We start off with the simplicity of something. I'm not saying it's a joke, but it's the simplicity of it. And then suddenly it gets all like tangled up. And
we throw
loads of other little bylaws in a sense that makes people's heads explode and don't know what's going on. So
that's right.
Jesus got fuming about that, didn't he? He got fuming where he's saying you're throwing like weights on people, and that's. We're not getting things totally right by any means. We're probably more wrong than right, but that's one of the things we've definitely tried to take the church through. You know, especially because we're desperate for our mates to be able to come down to church and to meet Jesus and be able to hang out with other lads who have kind of had the same experience. Yeah. So we're trying to strip some of that nonsense back, but I don't know. Sometimes it feels like we're doing it well.
I heard you speak years ago. I'm going to say, I don't know whether I should even say this, but I'm going to.
He said he does that all the time, so brace yourself. This is normally where I have to think, I'll note the time because I'm going to have to edit this bit out.
No, it's not.
I'm just ripping the side of my chair.
I'm not getting you into trouble here, but it's something. I can never sing the song when the music fades again because of you. Yeah. Every time I sing that song, I can't do it. I just can't do it. And I'd never seen it until you pointed it out that one of your mates said, this is a weird song. Yeah. We don't have to go into the details of it, but I just thought, that just reminded me when I was talking to him.
Yeah. But we get so stuck into this. I think
the language
I even heard you call it churchianity, which I quite like, Carl. I felt like I heard you use that term, which it becomes like this Christian bubble culture, which actually a lot of the lads at Finnegan's just can't get past that.
Well, I think there's a wider and more important point here that I think we've got to let people journey more for themselves.
Yeah.
Rather than tell people what they should believe about everything.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So for me, I believe that not every issue or problem in someone's life is going to be sorted out this side of eternity. My line is, you must be born again. Like, you must meet Christ, but then I'll journey with you.
Yeah.
You know, you work it out. You know, since when was I responsible for everything that you believe?
Yeah.
As a church leader. So I'm quite content for people to have lots of diverse views. What I do is just keep pursuing Christ and his grace. And I make the Beatitudes front and center. And, blessed are the meek, the humble, the peacemaker. Yeah. Love your enemies. Put that front and center. And everything else does, and the cause of Christ and letting people know about Jesus. And everything else seems to flow.
Yeah.
I think we get very panicky about everyone behaving properly.
That's what I'm saying. Right, that kind of bylaw thing that we put in instead of just doing these core things and letting people work it out themselves. Like trusting God, trusting His Spirit to help get people there. You know what I mean? Yes. Instead of answering every question for them, dotting every I, crossing every T. I think we got into that during the 90s.
Well, and also
80s,
the formula of the way we do church isn't necessarily biblical. As Tom said, I do coin this phrase, it's churchianity versus the kingdom.
Yeah.
Like the way we do things isn't necessarily the Bible. It's just tradition and habit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're exploring all sorts of new ways. We've built Christian Christ-centered community, and it's flourishing and fruitful, but it doesn't look like normal church.
And I mean, we ripped up the book, didn't we, after COVID?
Yeah.
COVID made everyone do everything different. And we were enjoying it, and it seemed to be connected with people so much that we just decided not to go back. And to the point where people were saying to us, when are we going back to normal? And we were like, no, this is now normal for us. We're going to sit here. There's going to be more than one person on the stage talking. There's going to be more, try and make it more of a discussion, more of a conversation starter rather than a conversation finisher. All that type of stuff. So we went from block of worship, 30 minutes of singing songs, 3 or 4 songs, to hymn prayer sandwich. We're basically a hymn prayer sandwich now.
Which is
just bizarre.
Strange for us. It's not our background at all, is it?
Not my preference, or it wasn't. I actually like it now. But I couldn't understand some people who, after COVID, which gave them that blank sheet of paper that they've been crying for years, leaders at church. If I only had a blank piece of paper, what would I do?
Well, it's the old problem of people want to rush back to Egypt, don't they? In the Bible story, God frees his people. They go out into the desert, but from being slaves in Egypt, and they're like, actually, I think I'd rather be a slave in Egypt.
Yeah.
It was easier. I think that's the problem. Like, it was a helpful disruption, but everyone rushed back to Egypt. Well, not everyone, because some of us didn't. Some of us went, right, what can we do here? For years we said church isn't about Sundays, but then it turned out it was after all.
So you've hinted there on this new sort of thing. Well, there's a couple of new things you've got going on, but the Edge Ministries that you've hinted at there, that you're starting to set up. Do you want to explain them to some of our lads?
Yeah. So we're basically focused on reaching people that have been overlooked and forgotten. So we work in sort of the bottom 1% areas of deprivation, and that's where I live and work as well. And all our teams live and work in those areas. But we've founded something called the Edge Faith Community. And so basically, in a nutshell, we kind of fused monasticism, early Methodism, this early Salvation Army, a bit of Sikh Gurdwara for hospitality, a little bit of community life of like the Bruderhof Brethren type, and then chucked in rampant charismatic house church as well.
Wow!
So we mixed all that together, and we basically founded the Edge Faith Community, where we operate centres that we've acquired. Which are like villages of hope and help for anyone. So they sort of contain all sorts of projects and advice work and free meals and cafes and all sorts of stuff. And all the help and advice people need: professional youth clubs and uniform shops, alcohol, drug detox work. But the faith community runs it. And we eat together. We have a communion meal as often as possible. And then we still teach the Bible. We have worship nights. We have a little rule of life we call Stuff We Do, which is just not a plant. It happens to be on my thing, which basically says, I'll ask Jesus to guide my daily decisions. I'll be generous with my words and my stuff. I love others like Jesus loves me. I read my Bible and try my best to live it out with the Holy Spirit's help. A few spaces for your own ones, like I'm going to make up with my neighbour or stop punching my sister or whatever. And then we keep the Sabbath holy, we say. We rest on Sundays. We don't do anything. We rest. So we're Jesus' hands and feet all week, and we rest on the Sabbath.
Yeah.
So that's essentially what we do. But last night at our Bible teaching night, it was 90 minutes of conversation, debate, cake, tea, fun. We have our worship night. So we have all the elements at church, but we've broken it all down. Like tonight, we've got a youth club but we rest on the Sabbath, and it's given life to people. And all that money that we have to put into Sunday production and stuff, we put into stuff during the week. But we have got hubs and associate churches that do meet on Sundays. We're not all doing away with it.
Yeah.
But we think it's a new, to coin the Christian phrase, a new wineskin for new wine.
And so are you finding that people can connect with? You're finding people from outside the church can connect more easily with that kind of approach,
real
Carl?
Simple, really easy. Like they come in. There's so many entry points, different projects that we run in, and community things that we do. And then we say to people, look, come and eat with us on Thursday night. It's a bring and share meal. You don't have to bring anything. I say we break bread. That means we take communion. It's so informal. You're not going to feel awkward.
Yeah.
Come and join us. And we're seeing people baptized, come to Christ. come and eat with us, sharing the life of the community, local counsellors and all sorts. Like, it's such an easy invite. And then, we're not ashamed of Jesus. So we say, come and join us in our worship night and come and experience it. And it's like a new monastic community without the weirdness.
Love
Basically.
it. Love it. It sounds so good, mate. It sounds so good. And I thought it'd be worth us touching on, because sometimes we get people in who have maybe grown up with faith and have kind of been in that had that worldview and perspective. And I think a lot of people think, well, you're kind of either grown up in church and that's when they brainwash you, and so you're stuck with it for life, or you just don't get that faith thing, and then you kind of look at it from the outside and feel a bit mystified. But for you, you're someone who came to faith, didn't you? You didn't grow up with faith. Tell the lads a little bit about that, Carl. I've heard you talk about it. It's really interesting.
Yeah, so I'm what they would call a first-generation Christian. So I've no Christian heritage at all, which makes me quite rare to be in sort of national leadership role, really, because most of us have come through sort of generations of faith.
Yep.
But that wasn't the case for me. So long story short, my dad was a flying squad cop and a regional crime squad cop, a murder investigator. He's a man's man, still alive, he's in his 80s. He taught me that we're just dust. We're animals, go back to dust. People are cruel. He had a very violent job and saw the worst of humanity. So that's what I was raised with. Good guy. But, his framework philosophy of life was, we live, we die, do what you got to do to get through, love your family, then you're done, kind of thing. But age 12, I got given a Gideon's Bible by the Gideon guy who told me to read it, or he had to promise to read it, or he wouldn't give us a copy when we were sitting in the assembly. It was back in the old days, so I went up and I shook his hand. He went, do you promise, son, to read this book every day?
Wow.
I do, sir. So he gave me a copy. He said, keep your word. So I did. My dad had taught me my word is my bond. I read it for 2 weeks, every day.
How old were you at this point, Carl? How old were you?
12.
12. Wow. Okay.
So this guy, in the front of that Gideon's Bible, it says where to read if you're sad, lonely, depressed, all that kind of stuff. There's nowhere to read if you feel really happy.
It's definitely a niche market, isn't it? You're going to kill yourself.
I read it for a couple of weeks. And then discovered it was made of Rizzlers.
Yeah.
So I smoked it. I smoked that one. And then at 18, I smoked it from Revelation back to Hebrews. And then at 18, long story short, I was sitting in an A-level English lesson. I was doing A-level, so I wanted to join the army as an officer in the Royal Tank Regiment. And I'd gone through selection. I needed to complete my A-levels. And my mate was sitting next to me, Bigsy. This guest lecturer in the English lesson, some actor bloke, said he stopped his lesson and he said, there's a group of people who are prepared to die for what they believe in. They're called born-again Christians. And I thought, born-again Christians? Well, that's Cliff Richard, isn't it? It was like 1989. He'd just done Mistletoe and Wine. I'm like,
classic.
Weirdo. Weirdo, And he said, are there any born-again Christians in this room? And my mate Bigsy put his hand up. So I'm like, what? I thought he was having a laugh.
Yeah.
And he went, no, I am one. Yeah. So I said, what's going on? He went, I go to this thing called the Emerson Park Evangelical Chapel. And I went, what? I thought, we don't swear anymore. That's the point. Anyway, I took the mick out of him for about 6 months. I used to do impressions of the resurrection. I'd hide in the cupboard at the sixth form common room and jump out. I go, I was dead, I'm alive. And then one day when I was taking the mick out of him in front of a group of girls to make them laugh so they go out with me or something.
Yeah.
He came up and prodded me on the chest and he went, if you don't come to church with me on Sunday, you're a chicken. Which is a very clever strategy
for
getting the bloke along. So I agreed to go, and again, cutting out a lot of detail. On the Sunday night, I was waiting inside the front of my house. I didn't want my dad to see me or mum see me going to church. I just started going out with my mates. And this bloke pulled up in a brown Morris Marina called Doug with Bigsy in it. I found out it was Doug when I got in the car. Bigsy said, this is Doug, he's a youth deacon. I'm like, what's a deacon? He went, not an elder. I'm like, what's an elder? He's going, like, more important. I'm like, what's that? So I get in the back of this brown Morris Marina. We're driving along. We stop at the first set of traffic lights, and Doug turned around to Bigsy and he went, I'm so grateful to God he's given me this car. And I'm like, it's a brown Morris Marina. Like, if it was a Porsche 911, I'd be doing Kumbaya, wouldn't I? Like, straight away, like, I'm in. We went to the church. The service is finishing. They were taking me to what was called the YPF group, the Young Person's Focus Group, for my first indoctrination into church. There's a good-looking girl on the back row who I fancied. I asked her to go out with me. I said, I'll take you to Deep Pan Pizza Factory in Romford. And she said, I only go out, like, classy, you know.
Yeah.
And she said, I only go out with Christians. I said, well, I am one. I'm British.
Yeah.
And that genuine. I thought, well, I'm born a Christian. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And she said, no, I go to people who met Jesus. And I went, well, I have. She went, no, you haven't. I can tell. A week later, I faked a conversion.
Nice.
I looked it up.
We've all been there.
I used the language. She saw through me.
Yeah.
And then 6 months later, I got invited to a church weekend in Clacton. And which was brilliant. This bloke called Tony offered to pay for me. And at the time I was captain of Essex judo squad, and he said, there's a gym, there's a bar, I'll pay for you, but you've got to listen to the talks. I shook his hand and agreed. The bloke was speaking called Robert Scott, who was an ex-para, who become a Methodist minister. I couldn't get my head around it. How do you go from being a para to a Methodist minister? I think I said to someone something like, they both kill people, one out of boredom, one with a gun. That's the only similarity, you know. But he preached a message of Jesus, like repeatedly, with conviction and passion for the weekend. He was like, Jesus is the Son of God. He did live. No one's going to disprove that. He did die. The resurrection is, you cannot disprove it. It happened. It's changed the world. And he didn't just die for the world, he died for you. And he'll change your life. He'll change your destiny. He'll make you the man you know you ought to be, or the woman you know you ought to be. 100%. Bang, bang, bang. And I came out of that weekend thinking, these Christians are annoying because they've got a peace about them that I haven't got. They're secure in something, I haven't got it and I can't touch it. But I changed my philosophy. I went from being what I would describe as an atheist to, I'll put God in my back pocket. And if there's a problem, then, you know, I could pray. Because I remember once my mum nearly died and my dad said to me, all we can do, son, is pray.
Wow.
So that's where I came to. But that Sunday night, we went back from Clacton to Hornchurch, and Robert Scott was doing the sign-off service. He was preaching, and he stopped his message. There were about 200 people there, and he said, "There's someone here who needs to give their life to Jesus. If you don't stand up now and give your life to Jesus Christ, my son, you won't go on to do all the things I've told you to do and all the things I put in your heart to do with your life." Word to that effect. And then said, this isn't Robert speaking, it's God speaking. And I'm like, no, it looks like Robert, you nutter. And then he
I know
said
it
again,
says
no,
you made in my image, like, but come on, lad.
Yeah. I'm like, no, you're nuts. And he said again, this isn't God speaking, this isn't Robert speaking, it's God speaking. If you don't stand up now, everything will be wasted. And realised I was standing up.
Wow.
And sobbing.
Wow.
I was just sobbing. And then again, I cut a lot of detail out because of time, but basically there were two elders in the church called Ron. One was Ron Blows, one was Ron Aldridge. One was tall, one was short. You couldn't make it up. And they came over to me and he said, we need to talk to you in the back room. I thought, what are they going to do? Tap me out? What's going to happen? They're going to slot me, you know. But they led me into the back room, which I think is called a vestry, sat me on the chair and said, what do you believe? And I said, I don't believe nothing, Ron. I don't know. I don't know what's happening. And they basically said, look, you don't know and we don't know. So we'll talk to you next week. And they went to walk out the room. And I'm like, Ron, come back.
One of you, come back.
And I came back and I went, I don't know what I believe, Ron, but I know that Jesus died for me and I don't know why. And they started crying. They pulled me out of the chair and they went, young man, that's all you need to know. Jesus died for you.
Wow.
And they led me out the back of the vestry and they shouted out to church, Carl was lost, but now he's found. And I'm like, I'm in Hornchurch. I don't know what that means. I know who I am. Then the girl that I fancied, that I kept going back to ask her out, came over and gave me a kiss. And I thought I should have done that 6 months ago. But she became my wife.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
so
amazing.
And she actually, hold on a minute.
Go on.
This is the Bible that she gave me.
Wow.
Which has fallen apart. And she actually wrote in this, which is, I've got a missing page somewhere. She wrote in this, I love you, Carl, and I always will, which I've kept. I've kept that. as a get out of jail free card.
Yeah. Remember you wrote this, love.
I've got it. It's written in the Bible.
The next morning, I went down to my dad, and I said to him, Dad, I'm not joining the British Army anymore because I met Jesus last night and I'm fighting battles for him instead. And he didn't even look up from the frying pan. And he went, "You still fancy girls, didn't you, son? That's the main thing." that was my first attempt at evangelism. But I never looked back from that day. I went back upstairs and I prayed and I opened my Bible, which I didn't know how to read, and it opened on Hebrews, which I smoked back to in my first Bible. Opened up to Hebrews 13:5, and it says, "Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you." And that's been my story ever since. That's what's kept me going.
And your life has been so radically different. And like, I mean, we know each other a little bit, Carl, from the outside, just an adventurous life.
Yeah.
A lot of people would say,
up, isn't it?
would be like, "Oh, right, I'm just if I become a Christian, it's like almost like a defeat. Like, oh, great, that means life's over." A lot of our lads would think, "Oh, I'll leave that till as late as possible." But that's not been your story, really, has it? I mean, is there a message you'd have for lads who kind of, maybe there's this niggling feeling in their minds, even when you're saying that and thinking, my background's not dissimilar from Carl. I couldn't imagine myself, becoming a Christian, but there is something nagging in me that thinks that what he's saying, that is true. What would your message be for people about faith and Christianity if they're in that position?
Well, being honest, there's a cost. Jesus will take you to the wire because he wants to fashion you, mold you, shape you for you to become the man deep down you ought to be. And only Jesus Christ can take you there, and only he can change your destiny. But the other thing is he will gradually erode and eradicate the things in your life that are doing you in, and he will amplify and develop and build the things that will release you to glorious things if you cooperate with him. And although it can seem like, this holiness thing, this narrow path thing they talk about, and walking with Jesus means I've got to give this and that up. It's not like that. Like, if you follow Christ, you come alive. I mean, honestly, the things I've got involved in, the things I've done, I'm just a kid from Dagenham. I'm not the most eloquent, as you can tell. I'm not the sharpest ticket, but if you follow Christ, it is a beautiful adventure. And when you die, that ain't it. For me, he is still in the process of making me the person I know I ought to be, but my life is immeasurably full of joy. Really.
Amazing.
For all the pain and the ups and downs. I've had my traumas. Don't get me wrong, bad traumas. But yeah, I can't conceive of life without Christ at all.
No.
Wow.
I mean, that's the word that comes up when we interview people like this, isn't it?
Yeah.
On these Zoom ones that we've done, these extra ones, is this adventure.
Yeah.
That's the word that gets said a lot. It's an adventure. You do stuff that you never dreamed you'd ever do or get involved in, It's just the adventure of faith. And
I think it's important. I think there was a time when the church was selling Jesus as this like free ticket to
fix everything.
To fix everything, and life was so perfect. But it was a missale, really, because that's not been my experience.
Well, that's why people gave up, wasn't it? I would say. Because
it's false teaching.
Yeah.
Actually,
they get told that it's going to be brilliant, and then something happens, and they go, "Well, where's God?" kind of thing. You know what I mean? But no, that's not what the Bible story says as you read through it. That's not it.
But there's something about that. The Bible puts it about life being fuller, isn't it? Life to the full. And that's been my experience. Not that it's easier, sometimes harder.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is harder, but the fact that you're not in the fight on your own, are you, anymore? No. You're not in it. You've got someone who's got your back.
I said to God, I'll follow you wherever you tell me to go, and I'll do whatever you ask me to do, no matter what. And that has come at great cost. But there's joy in it and fullness of life. I look back and I think the things I've managed to get involved in and do would never have happened without Jesus. But even like sustaining my family through terrible traumas at times, and health challenges, and I'm navigating some potential health challenges at the moment. But people are saying to me who know me closely here, how can you stay so joyful through the trials and the challenges? I'm like, well, if you see anything good in me, that's only because of the one who's greater than me working in me. And that's what he's done. He's given me life to the full, and it just keeps bubbling up. I don't mean I don't have my bad days.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Amazing. Another thing, I know time's getting on, but one thing I did want to touch on, Carl, because obviously we this is called Wednesday night at Finnegan's. We're doing this in Alan's bar, in his back garden. You know, also for a lot of us, and for secret location, not
anymore.
Not anymore. But the thing, I think, you know, for a lot of my mates, and that alcohol is a central part of life. Not in terms of growing up, every family occasion, lots of key moments in life would normally have happened in the pub, or kind of alcohol had been a part of that. And I know for some people, alcohol is destructive as well. It's it's a horrible evil for some people in their lives. But I'm aware that for you recently, you've kind of started this journey of sobriety, and so I think it'd be really interesting, you know, especially as we, you know, at the gathering and that, you know, that's one of the things that's amazed me is kind of there's lads who with a pint in the service, you know, and stuff like that. So I'd be interested to hear about your experience with that, what led you to do that, how you found it. Were you going to say something there?
I was just going to say, because I'm almost not going the opposite way. I'm actually leaning into. I've actually somehow, and now I've opened a brewery. I haven't brewed any beer yet, but I've opened a brewery, and the idea is to brew beer and use the profits to feed the poor, kinds of thing. You know, do projects and stuff. That's the idea. So I'm leaning into the culture a bit more. And you're doing this sober leader thing, sobriety stuff. Yeah. So, and I'm not saying I'm doing right. And I actually think I'm going back to a bit of monasticism that you said, you know, because they used to brew beer and stuff. So it's a bit of an opposites journey, and yet possibly still doing really good stuff. Yeah. Do you get what I mean?
Definitely.
Anyway, sorry. So how did you?
All it was. I mean, like you. Then I mean, I loved the beer and I knew my wines. I really did. But over a 2.5 year journey, which I think is how long it took. I've been sober now for 15 months, completely dry.
That's incredible.
But I mean, in a nutshell, I was exploring it, and a member of my family was horrendously abused in the worst possible way by a secret alcoholic, and so that but I still carried on drinking after that, but it sort of made me question, you know, the role of alcohol in society. And then I was going to ministers' gatherings, church leader gatherings, and national leader gatherings, and people getting on it a bit too much. And, you know, and basically, I wasn't being judgmental. I just thought, what if, like, I was thinking to myself, what if God's put something in my life, but I'm numbing it? What if I'm blunting the sharp edge of what God's doing in me? You know, the verse 1 Peter 5:8 in the Bible says, be sober-minded and alert. And I know you can be sober-minded in all kinds of ways. But I thought, well, you know, maybe. Anyway, one long story short again, one night we've been out with the CVM boys and the beers have been consumed. Not too much, but had a few pints. And I thought I'll call it a night. And I went up to my premiering room, laid on my bed and wrote sobriety day in my diary, you know, after a few beers. And didn't tell anyone. I thought, I just won't tell anyone, see what happens. I didn't have a drink for a week. The next week, I was down in Buckinghamshire to preach at a church. And I took Karen with me. So we'll get a hotel overnight, we'll preach in the morning, have a nice meal out, and then potter about a bit and have a slow journey home. So we pulled up at the hotel, and I said to Karen, there's a lovely restaurant, 45-minute walk away. And I thought we'd get a bottle of wine or have a couple of beers. Totally forgot about the sobriety day thing. While I was walking to the restaurant, I had this overwhelming feeling. I thought, well, should I have a beer or a bottle of wine? And suddenly I could imagine it choking me, like it was constricting my throat. I thought, oh yeah, I wrote sobriety day down. Forgot about that. Anyway, I didn't say anything to Karen again. And by the way, she's not a Karen. She's a really peaceful Karen. So when we got to the restaurant, I ordered scallops and black pudding with a lime and soda. And Karen sort of looked at me across the table like, that's not normal. Anyway, at that moment, this bloke walked in who's in his 40s, absolutely trolleyed. I mean, badly drunk, with his two elderly parents who are in their 70s, 80s. And he started talking incredibly offensively about women he wanted to have sex with. Like, it was diabolical language. And then he leaned over to me, he was sitting right close to me, next table. He leaned over to me and went, what do you think I should do, mate? So I just turned around to him and went, I think you should talk more quietly and less offensively, mate, actually. Well, I was a bit loud because I haven't really got a conflict filter, you know. So this bloke sat back in his chair, and then I noticed the whole restaurant had gone quiet. So I leaned round, I turned around again and went, no. So I didn't say don't talk. I said, just talk quietly, less offensively, so I can have a lovely meal.
Yeah.
And then turned back to Karen and I went, she's a really peaceful person. I went, oh, I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I didn't mean to embarrass you. You know, and the parents leaned over and went, we're so sorry for our son. You know, it's all awkward. And Karen said something that changed my life. She said, oh, no, I liked it. I went, why? She said, you made me feel safe. And I said, why is that? She said, because if you'd had a drink, you probably would have pushed him back in his chair.
Interesting.
But you took command in a really peaceful way. And I think if you'd had a drink, it'd be different. And this bomb went off in my brain. I was a moderate drinker. Sometimes could drink too much, like we all can, because that's so easy to do because the alcohol hits you later, you know. And I said to Karen, have you cursed me? She said, why is that? And I said, well, you know, I like a wine or a beer, but I've been doing this thing for a week and I felt choked on the way to the restaurant. She went, no, I haven't cursed you, but I've been praying in the background that if there's anything that's stopping you entering into the fullness of God's purposes for your life, it'd be revealed. I said, well, I think I need to stop drinking. She said, well, pray about it. Anyway, over the next week or two, I did pray about it. And then I preached a message at a church and 3 people became Christians independently of each other, were all recovering alcoholics. Then I started thinking, well, maybe I could drink with 1 or 2 people that I trust. And then I preached again and the same thing happened again. I felt basically God was saying to me, don't drink. So I stopped drinking I thought, I don't know how long this is going to last. And I put a thing out on Facebook that if any leaders want to join me, I know the church is not a safe place to chat if you're a church leader and you're struggling with the source. And a load of people started joining this closed Facebook group. And then I made a vow to God one day. I said, I promise you, God, as long as I live, I'll never let ethanol intentionally touch my bloodstream again. And at that moment, every single bit of desire for any alcohol left my life. Like 100%. I have no desire for alcohol again. And now a year on, 50 months on, we've got 225 leaders going sober who, you know, some of whom have had serious struggles. I still have a bar at the gathering. I buy me mates a beer. I know that some people can drink moderately. I don't think it's biblical to say you should not drink. I don't agree with that. But I think that God is calling some people to a greater holiness and sobriety. It's right for them. And I think there is some church leadership is a brutal job. Is ministry leadership. And it's an easy medication. And some people can't be moderate. So what I say to people is, I'm not a moderate person. That is obvious. You know, I don't take up jogging. I have to go and run a mountain marathon. I don't start cycling. I've got to cycle across 4 countries. You know, I set up a sober thing. It's got to be a global movement. I mean, nothing I do is moderate, ever. I'm a nutter. But the same applied to drink. I couldn't imagine why leave half a bottle of wine on the side. Drink it. I don't do it. I don't understand moderation. So for some of us, I had rules like I won't drink Monday to Friday. And then I'm thinking, why do I need that rule? Why do I need that?
Interesting.
I just won't drink.
So
I quit and I feel fantastic. After a month, I had this euphoria come into my life. I just felt this joy and I started hearing God more and amazing things started happening. And I've not looked back. The weirdest thing is though, I've got some health challenges we'll talk about more another time, but that happened after I got sober. So I'm like, here you go, quit drink, lose weight, get fit, get healthy. How does that work?
You're not selling it to us, mate.
Everyone, I'm not about to die. I'm not about to die, but I've had 51 years of full health, and now suddenly I've got a few snags. That could be age, but it is ironic.
But
that's the journey. That's the journey.
Wow.
I've opened a brewery just as you're stopping. You could put me out of business.
That's it.
Can you do a zero? Can you do a zero version?
I'll try.
That'd be great.
I might bring a barrel to the gathering one year. You never know.
I'm just going to let my dog out. Look, I've got
a nice.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead, mate. Go ahead.
Sound. We're getting
interesting, isn't it? Interesting.
Yeah,
I think, especially for a lot of our lads who would just find that in itself, just stopping the ale, just such a foreign foreign concept. Maybe that goes back to, again, what we're saying, in terms of following Jesus. It's not, there's a sacrifice along the way.
Yeah.
There is.
But again, it sounds like there's been life in that. That you found life in that.
Amazing. Honestly, Tom, I feel genuinely fantastic. I haven't had a bad morning in 15 months. With the money I saved, my German Shepherd died during COVID, so I bought a Cavapoo with the money I saved.
Yeah,
I mean, but I do genuinely feel, honestly, fantastic, and I love being out with the boys. I love going down the pub. It's not affected my relevance at all. In fact, I've got a local counsellor down the road, liked a beer. He used to buy me bottles of pink lemonade when he found out I'd gone sober. But he'd stopped drinking, and I've had a whole bunch of people around me because they saw how much life it brought into me.
Wow.
But, the monasteries were famed for their fine ales, and I wish you all the success.
Where can people, if people want to find, they can follow you on social media if they want to explore some more of that journey, can they, Carl? If people are feeling, resonating with what you're saying there, thinking maybe they need to, being challenged on that kind of thing. Can they, is that social media somewhere they can go? I think you'd be doing sober leader stuff.
I'm obviously on Facebook. You just search for Beech as a page, or Carl Beech, and then Sober Leader for church leaders or ministry leaders.
Great.
And also, you follow me on Instagram. I put a few videos up on Carl F. Beech on Insta.
Okay.
I've been working with Simon Thomas a bit of that from Sky Sports. He's been sharing his journey of sobriety too, and we're doing some stuff together. We've got a podcast as well called Last Orders.
Great.
So you can check that out.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Good stuff. Yeah. Well, Carl, what we do normally with each of our guests before we finish for the night in Finnegan's is we have a it's quite an exclusive membership list that we've got at Finnegan's, and basically we don't let anyone in off the street, do we?
No, not just anyone.
No,
not just anyone.
And so we basically, people tell a bit of a story, and we get a bit of obviously we get a bit of a feel for them. Then
see if they can become a VIP.
See if they can become a member. And so if it goes well,
get them on the wall.
We stick them on the wall. That's what happens. They go on the membership list. They can, whenever they're in the Northwest, they can pop in, have for yourself,
have a 0%, have a coffee,
pink
whatever,
lemonade.
Pink lemonade, that type of stuff.
And so that's if it goes well. If it goes badly, and we've had to ban a couple, didn't it? It got a bit violent in Finnegan's the other week. Facebook banned someone off, didn't they?
48-hour bans there, wasn't it? On Facebook.
Got a bit lively.
Yeah, for
a bit
violence,
lively. Yeah. And so if that happens,
you're
then
bad, lad.
You're bad. And sadly, we'd still come to to the gathering, but we just would blank you
have to talk
in a really unchristian manner. So, if you've got a story, Carl, to pitch yourself for the VIP members list, mate, we'd love to hear it.
Well, don't hate me for this, but I used to be a banker.
Okay, it's not started well.
In the early 90s, I was one of them, making
money.
huge dollars of cash, which I then spent on planting churches years later. But
wow,
for 3 years I was a salesman in a bank, and I was dealing with a lot of high net worth individuals, people with a lot of money to tuck away, or companies had money to tuck away. Anyway, this bloke came in for this meeting, and it was an after hours meeting. I used to use different bank branches, offices to have these meetings all over the West End and the city. And I was in Hanover Square in the West End meeting this guy after hours, and he kind of came in wearing a suit with an overcoat. And I remember thinking, there's something not quite right. And when I went out to shake his hand, he had a prosthetic arm.
Okay.
And he had it was a 90s prosthetic arm, so it was like a bit of a plastic.
There was a one-armed man in my room.
Hand. It was just like a plastic hand. So I awkwardly shook his hand. Anyway, we're having this meeting, and he had a lot of money to tuck away. So this was a good bit of business, like really good. And then we start talking in detail. I said, well, not being subtle, it's London. I went, what happened? How'd you lose your arm? And he said, well, part of my money comes from quite a big insurance payout. I was involved in a car crash and my arm was ripped off.
Oh.
And so he starts talking about all of this, and he had a big payout of negligence from the juggernaut that he hit and various other things. Plus he'd had a business and various other things. And so he said, that's a source of my money. So we sit there. So I've got a really detailed grasp of this now. And we sit there and we work out where to put all this money. And I'm thinking, there's a lot of commission in this. I'm gonna siphon off a fair bit of this. This is good bit of business as a young married guy. Anyway, the meeting finished after about an hour and a half, first initial meeting. And as we leave in my office, which was a glass office in a banking hall, and I could see there is by the counter, just behind the counter at the bank, the cashiers were putting some stuff into a safe. Like, not all the money, but bits and pieces and receipt things and going to say, we're walking out of the office. And I said to him, like, to this day, I cringe. And I went, some people give their right arm to be locked in the bank with the safe open. To this day. And this bloke, he's standing there about to shake my hand with a plastic hand. And I'm like, I just sort of froze. I went into meltdown. I just froze. And he just walked off. And never returned my calls.
Oh, that was it. He didn't do the deal with you.
That was it.
Commission gone.
He was properly traumatised. Some people get their right arms to be locked in the bank. Wow. And to this day, I've never been famed for my subtlety.
Wow.
Or nuance.
No.
Love it.
Sounds like it's someone who would fit right in Finnegan's bar.
Does it? You would, yeah. You'd be very at home here, mate. You'd be very at home. Well, I think you're going on the wall, Carl, for definite, mate.
Thank you, mate.
Would you want to be? How do you prefer to be referred to on the wall?
Beachy.
Beachy.
Where's he going?
Go up here. Here we go.
Yeah, brilliant. I feel honoured, boys. Well, I'm emotional, to be honest.
We're honoured to have you.
That's you never expected this, did you, mate? But you've hit new.
It's the pinnacle.
It's the pinnacle.
I've hit the top. I don't know where to go from this.
That's it. You just spend the day now just in existential crisis, just
feeling
thinking,
the glory.
What do I do now?
I've
peaked. Very good. Carl, I also wanted to mention you've got a podcast with Nathan Blackerby, haven't you? A CVM type podcast.
Beachy and Blackers.
Beachy and Blackers.
Beachy and Blackers podcast. Yeah, check it out.
So if you're into your podcast, go and find that one as well.
Yeah.
That's
and
great.
CVM means Christian Vision for Men.
Yeah.
That's just where we keep saying CVM and
Christian Vision
really,
for Men. Yeah, we're going to take a group of lads from Finnegan's down, so we'll see you there.
We will.
Look forward to seeing you in the field near Swindon.
We look forward to it.
Sound.
All that's left to do, I think, is last
call
orders.
Time, yeah. So, time, gentlemen, please.
Yes, Beachy. Thanks so much, mate. We appreciate your time and look forward to catching up again soon.